Hey, welcome back to another episode of Epic Meta Podcast. George, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. How are you?
Good. You know that I said hey instead of my normal opening?
Yes, I like that.
Because I noticed that I do that repeatedly on every episode. It's always the same thing. I think it's all get to a comfort zone of repeating the same word, so I use the same line to open an episode, trying to do something new.
There's a lot. I've
Uh,
I've noticed that both of us have repeated words and phrases.
yes. So this is our 10th episode, which is a little celebration for us, really, for us as far as an accomplishment, because it's actually, when we started out, I didn't know how far we can make it, and I was worried. So now it's an official. Now you have to put forth effort, or you know, extra effort, more than before, to keep it going and make it into something. So congratulations, George.
Yeah, I was never worried. By the way,
I was, because I was worried of so in between the episode, maybe about 2 weeks ago, about I think our 6 or 7 episode, I was actually working on something else, so it was a little bit of schedule overwhelming or conflict for me, but it worked out. So just managed to squeeze it in, and now it's it's fine, so I'm not too worried. But yeah, so this episode is gonna review. Uh, Actually, why don't you describe this episode? I think you might have a better hold on it than I do.
well, this is our 10th episode, and the idea for this episode is to take a look back at our prior episodes, discuss what worked, what maybe what didn't, but less of an emphasis on the negative. Um, and you know um, what we can how we can improve and where we're going to take the show in the future, I guess.
Yeah, do you want to call it recap? Episode 10 recap, or you have a name it in mind already, or
Uh,
not yet?
Recap is okay. I was thinking of 10th episode retrospective spectacular.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
If that'll fit on the YouTube
Yes.
icon.
Uh, Retrospective. Yeah, I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
How about just retrospective spectacular?
Spectacular. Okay. Let me write that down before I forget. But cool. All right, let's go into a little bit. So let's go a bit of outline. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna try a new thing, and I've seen it on the different podcasts, and it's a time frame reference where it section out the YouTube clips. Um, so you have to watch this on YouTube for you kind of understand what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna try and do that. So I'm gonna give it an outline now, so that people can follow through and look for stuff. But we're gonna talk a little bit about some of the improvements or things we noticed that the show needs. Um, Overall, what we learned. A little bit about each other as far as how we, what we learned over working on this project. Talk about our favorite episode or least, or a little bit of an episode review as well. Try and answer what is the show about, and then go into our future topics and show ideas. So that's the outline. So first, what some improvements that you notice we think we need, and I'll go into mine after.
Okay, well, we touched on this a little bit. We actually, I guess, before we pressed record. So, but we have repeated phrases uh, that we tend to fall back on. There's some ums and ahs in Toastmasters. There's a position meeting role called the ah counter, and their specific role is to count the number of times people say ah and use repeated phrases and such. I've always found that role to be annoying. Um, I've said the joke before that if Toastmasters was like a schoolyard, the ah counter would be the kid that would be bullied or beaten up.
I like the counter,
Do you?
but yes,
Interesting. So anyway,
yes.
we I mean we can get into specifics on this. A phrase that I've heard many times is, for lack of a better word or lack of a better
Yep,
term. Um,
that's totally me. And
uh,
I notice I say that a lot when I'm stuck.
yeah,
When I'm stuck explaining myself. But yeah, go continue. If you notice something else,
and
continue. That's
oftentimes it doesn't really apply logically to to the situation, but um,
yes, yes.
well, I guess if I'm going to stick with you, there's a mouth clicking noise that you make every so often, like a
It's okay.
kind of
I
thing.
didn't notice that, but okay.
It's there. I say certainly quite a bit,
Mm.
and
Certainly,
I say quite a bit as well.
I don't think that's as bad as a big phrase. Certainly, it's okay as a word to be used because you would use that in normal talking.
Yeah, but
And
there have been times when I've noticed that I've said it quite like a lot, over and over again. So,
yeah,
it,
okay. Well, it's difficult, right? Because there's no script. I mean, there is some scripting that we do, but for the most part, I looked at other podcasts and I actually try and watch Alex Freeman over this past week for longer than 10 minutes. I couldn't. His his voice. He was interviewing Michio Kaku. I'm not sure if you know who that is. Um,
I've I um I pay regular attention to his podcast, so I'm sure I heard at least some of the episode.
yes, so Michio Kaku is someone I actually like a lot, just because of the way he explain or break things down. And I was trying to focus on the conversation, and every time, and it was more of an interview than an actual podcast, but or a conversation.
Mhm.
But every time Alex Friedman talked, I would just snooze out. Like his voice, is just it's so boring to me.
He has
And
a
it was
Yeah, he has a flat affect. It's very subdued.
yes, yes, and even then, in his show, which I think is slightly better production than us, because one is video, two, there doesn't seem to be a lot of mishap and interruption. Probably because he sent his guests questions beforehand, and they think about the answers before they start doing the show. And they probably has a lot of editing there in there as well. So for that format, it's cleaner. But for our format, and I've noticed other podcasts where it's a conversation between like two, three, sometimes even four people, it's very difficult to have a clean, uncut version of that where it just a thought and then a comment, a thought, a comment. It's very hard to do. So you're gonna have repeating phrases. I'll
Yeah,
try to use less, for
it's
lack of a better term. I notice I do that when I'm trying to express something and I can't get it right because it's unscripted. So I would rather just leave it lie and let it die there, rather than try to re-explain myself. And that's the thing where I notice myself repeating instead of letting something be. I would try to the best way to explain it. But over most time, instead of clarifying, it end up being repetitive. So that's something I do and hogs up time a lot. That's the other thing I notice.
yeah.
What else you got?
Um, okay. So one thing that I've tried to mitigate is background noise.
Hmm.
In the earlier episodes, you can hear my chair squeaking quite a bit, like when I'll lean back in it and I'll go like, "Yeah," you know. So I have a special chair that I sit in for the podcast now. So, so that's actually
Yeah.
an example of something I've learned. And
Do you, when you listen now, do you uh see I just did that sound.
yeah,
Do you hate background noise?
I don't, but it can be distracting, and I wanted to
because the
It
yeah,
it was annoying. It actually, when I
yeah.
listened back to the episode, it made me cringe a little. So yeah.
Hmm. I'm wondering if you feel the same way when you hear my background noise. Because in editing, I can hear background noise on both sides, and I'll diminish them.
Hmm.
But my keyboard is called a mechanical keyboard. It's actually
It's clicky.
made, yes, it's made to be clicky and noisy, and that's how it's made. Um, and that's how I like it. So I try to type less, but I'm wondering if you feel the same way when it's, not your chair or any other noise for background noise.
Yeah, I
'Cause that's
suppose it's more grating when it's my own fault.
mm, mm, yeah. Well, I do run the both audio through a for yours because of the microphone that you use. I do run both our voice clips or files through a what is called a denoiser, so to speak. It's basically a few buttons I click that makes it less noisy. So for the most part, you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I've noticed my microphone is a little bit lower than yours too. My
Yeah.
voice sounds a little. Oh, by the way, you just said "so to speak." That's another pet phrase.
Yes, I do that. I do that. How are you gonna combat your certainly?
I
Are
mean,
you gonna try, or are you gonna try to negate that?
yes, of course. It's just trying to be aware of it, and
Mm. Do you think
that's
that's a problem because it makes it sound boring and repetitive? Repetitive?
well, it definitely makes it sound repetitive, right?
Mm.
I Yeah, it's just not as eloquent. It's not as pleasing to the ear. I would say.
Yep. I guess I should start making notes of all the phrases I use. Yeah, so I don't have to be repetitive. But uh, I notice that as we go along, I think our outlining or programming is a little bit better. I don't know. I didn't keep track. Definitely episode one, there was no outline. It was just super raw, and that was really frustrating to listen to.
Hmm.
And I think as I well, each of the episode now have a theme or a topic. So when I was looking over them, uh, it was not as frustrating, even though some of them goes further on. So that's to me that's I don't know why, but to me that's production value. What do you what do you take out?
So,
And now this is where we bleed over into. I mean, unless you have more topics in regards to mistakes or improvements.
just a couple of things. You added music to one episode, and we decided that didn't work well. Um, and I don't bring this up to be critical. I think it's interesting that we're trying to implement different things, and we're observing whether they work well or not.
Yeah.
Your outro you added, I love that. I love the outro. By the way, I'm wondering if so. Does this 10th episode mark the end of season one, or are we not doing seasons?
To me, it is. I was thinking about doing different music for outro for episode 11 to 20.
Okay, I like
So
that.
I actually re-record or refresh, and because for that part of the show, I just typed up something. I think maybe within 10 minutes, and then just did it.
Mm-hmm.
It took me maybe five or six tries until I could just say everything I want to say with very little mistakes, and then I just, that's it. I made that recording. Maybe for episode 11 to 20, uh, we can do your voice with different music or something like that, just to mix it up, right? If someone listen, I
Yeah,
looked at the statistic. I highly doubt someone listened from beginning to end, because with the way our format is even something that you like. Maybe I'm not the typical audience. Again, with Alex Freeman and Michio Kaku, for example, the way they truncate or section out their podcasts on YouTube, I moved around a lot just to get what I'm looking for.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, regardless, if someone listened to that part of the show, they get treated to your voice or for the outro instead. I don't know, just something different.
Yeah.
So
No,
that
I'd
was my idea.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah, just to vary it up, mix it up a little bit.
And the final, I mean, this isn't really tech, but it's sort of, it's non-content related, I guess.
Mm.
Um, the the issue of attracting listeners and building an audience. Do you have any
Mm.
thoughts on that?
I don't think we have an issue because we don't have a core. But when you say issue of are you trying to grow the channel, or are we looking at a rate where we're not matching up against?
No, I'm just observing it, and obvious, and yeah, I mean, there is a part of me that uh, enjoys the fact that our content gets views and people are listening to it.
I
So
would say, yeah, no, I would say we're doing all right. It's just something now that you're into that world, you care a little bit about all
mhm,
those stats and statistics. I'm still learning it as I go, just as you, but I think you focus that on a little bit more.
mhm.
But
Well, well, specifically, I'm wondering, are there things we could be doing to
oh yeah,
increase that?
a lot, George. Like we could do a lot. There's like
Well,
a list,
specifically what?
social media for one. So like a Facebook page or a Facebook group or whatever.
Mhm.
Instagram is another thing. It just you can think of any other social media and then you can be on there to share this podcast. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. So
So
social
yeah, there's
media. What about like
social
what about like the
a
topics we
website.
choose? What about the
Yes.
content? Like, could our content be different such that it will attract more people?
Um, I think our content, unless we're already famous, like like a comedian or performer of some kind, our content need to be more focused, or we just stick to general forever. So for example, take Alice Freeman for example. His podcast is all about just one thing, right?
Hmm.
And ours is not. So until we can actually answer that question and define ourselves, it'll be very hard to attract listeners or yeah, because the thing is you want to market, you want to push, and where you want to push that to, or how you tag your certain you know um, podcasts or files or whatever keywords that you want to tag be associated with. Until we know that, it's very difficult to do marketing for. So
I kind of like that that our subject matter is open ended, though.
yeah,
I don't
me
know that
too.
I don't know that I would want to narrow our topics down.
Right. And part of the thing is, do we know, along the same line with that, it's just not podcasting or attract listeners is also, do we know who our listeners are or should be or want to be? And so answering either one of those questions will kind of help answering the other. But
Mhm.
yes, generally speaking, there's a lot for us to do. Um,
Well, we have 9 YouTube subscribers.
yeah. Yep.
Maybe we could
Yep.
ask them.
I guess we could, but I don't want the podcast to be influenced by listeners either.
Right.
Um,
Well, and
yeah,
are those 9 people a representative sample of our future audience?
correct, correct. I don't know what define our core audience is either, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, things to worry about. Continual improvement of on this show, but very important to know to keep in focus for a long term as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot for us to do. For example, every episode we can like put out, the little thing that I do is in Photoshop for that picture of the YouTube icon.
Hmm.
There are other people out there with better skills than I do and can make that into something you can post, for example, getting on Twitter and do all this stuff. And have a live recording show, and it's just so much out there. So I want to keep it minimal because I can actually do some of it.
Sure, yeah.
Otherwise it takes a lot of time.
Baby
And then we won't.
baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. Otherwise, this is where I enjoy doing, right? And I don't want to, hate to do this because then it'll be unproductive. But yeah, if you're Alex Freeman, like you only see him, but I'm pretty sure he has a team. If you watch any other podcast, you see people off the camera doing stuff,
Hmm.
and that's how they get their production value so high.
Yeah,
Cool. Well,
Joe Rogan has a guy who looks stuff up while they're
yeah.
talking.
Yeah, is one to continue asking his interviewee, and the other is to make less noise as well, right? Because he can't multitask while he does all that.
Hmm.
So that's kind of why they have that. But for us, if we're not ever gonna have guests, or if guests is a rare thing, we can just keep it between us and bounce ideas back and forth. Um, so we'll kind of cross over to the second question, which is about what did we learn, and I was looking at the overall all the episode. It's generally around some of the things we know, just because that's generally how people work. I
Hmm.
do notice there's a theme, and I'm afraid even though you're not trying to put our show into a box, we do have a theme of uh, movie slash books review slash discussion.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if you're happy with that in the long run, but maybe we can also include in like essays review. Is that is that is that okay for you? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I don't have too much of a problem with that. I mean, I agree. We don't want to fall into that hole and stay there.
Mm,
But I think it's fine to the extent that we're doing it, because a lot of
mm,
these, like for example, the free will episode, we did discuss
mm-hmm,
Sam Harris's book, but we also discussed the idea of free will in general.
mm-hmm.
So I think it's like a springboard to
Yeah,
to approach general topics. I think, by contrast, the Freakonomics episode, I think we pretty much just stuck with the book.
yeah, yeah. And continue even like offline when we're not talking online about in the middle of recording a podcast. We have planned for other topics and ideas. Typically, it revolves around books and movies and TV shows. So while we're not limited to that, I think that might be our core if we continue to notice a trend moving forward. But I do like revisiting because concepts like free will and we talk about consciousness quite a bit in episode one. Now that I was checking it out, can can have multiple visitation, right? So we can revisit it with a new angle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's conflicting or boring, but um, it's a possibility. So yeah.
I'm not bored by it.
Cool. So yeah, moving into what do we learn? I want to say that podcasting to me, I think for you it's way easier than for me. I can say that so so far.
What
Uh,
specifically do you mean?
Specifically being free flow. So I have a problem with free flowing. Not a big problem, but generally I like outlining and a guided conversation per se
Mm-hmm.
versus just no frame. And then coming up with ideas for follow-up episode or follow-on episodes, I also get stuck because of the exact same problem of defining this show. I don't know what to do to get one to get more audience, two to actually be interested for us, and so yeah, it's just overall being a brand new podcaster, really not sure, have worked on the homework of just defining the show, and then we just jumped into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. That's what I learned. It's just I think take time to take time to define your show. But if you're trying to be clever and meta and just say that your podcast is about, a podcast about podcasts, you can definitely do that and it still be difficult. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of pride myself on being creative. And I'm not afraid to venture into that realm. So
Cool.
if you can rely on me
Nice.
to the extent you find you find that difficult.
Yeah.
And I do
Perfect.
like the open endedness of our
Mm.
podcast, um, and I also enjoy the way that it's sort of reveal. Oh, sort of is another pet phrase of mine as well.
Sort of is okay though. I don't think
Well,
that's.
again, when I repeat it over and over again, I tend my future self listening back becomes annoyed.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's something to take note of and try to improve upon. So what was I saying? That I enjoy how the podcast is revealing itself to us. It's something distinct from the two of us, right?
Yes.
It's an entity unto itself,
Yes.
and
Yes, it is.
I like that.
Yes. Any other technical aspects you can think of? I was originally gonna talk about picking a platform and why we went on YouTube first versus other platform. Now that we're on now that we're on Buzzsprout, and now that on actual podcasts with other services like Apple Podcasts, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I can say that either or is fine. I say YouTube matters mainly because how I tried to do some stuff, other projects I did in the past, getting a Gmail account
Mm-hmm.
is like crucially important. So that's why I went with YouTube in the first place because Gmail.
Because you need an email to sign up for the channel. Is that why?
Well, correct. Unless you want to use your own name, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you create anything, just pick a business. If you want to open a orange juice stand or lemon juice stand and you want to go with, lemonjuice.com, for example. Well, instead of going with that, a lot of people use lemonjuice at gmail.com. And so as a business or an entity, you can just be contacted through there and all those emails are there in a different, bucket,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of a better term. But because Google at one point, purchased YouTube, having a YouTube channel tied to that email account makes your life easier. Now, that said, you can totally, with any Gmail, create any YouTube station. It doesn't, that part isn't crucial. The crucial part is now, if this ever grows to be something, crazy, it has its own email domain.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, I think it was a good move on your part
Mm.
to get a to move us to Apple Podcasts as opposed to strictly YouTube because
Hmm.
YouTube is good, but you can't do two things. You can't. I like to have a podcast on in the background and then work on
Yeah.
something else on my phone, let's say.
Yeah.
And with YouTube, you have to shut down unless you have the premium
Yeah.
YouTube, which I don't.
Yeah. No, I say that's I comment I credit you with that because it was your I guess urging or pushing that we actually got on that. So which I'm glad because actually the technical aspect of that is actually super fast in regards to once you create that flow, the recording and what is called extraction exporting. The audio is actually smaller than video, so it's actually faster
Hmm.
and it's much more. Once you do a few things to make sure the audio sounds good, it's a faster process than putting stuff on YouTube. But yeah, so I'm happy that you pushed for that, and I'm glad to say we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher, which is we're trying to get on TuneIn and Alexa. I'm having difficulty because I'm not sure. But we're trying to get as far as possible with different, and there's a billion out there too, right? Like all different kind of services. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure we're not on whatever people listen to, but one of the bigger ones because I know about Stitcher before doing this show. So yeah.
Well, I may have pushed for that, but I would never have actually done the work to make it happen. So that's it's good to have you on the team for that
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah, yeah. I like it and I don't because over time, I think when I was in high school and college, so I'm a geeky person. I build computers and stuff like that. But every time I do something, learning about it is a frustrating process. So it doesn't stop. But once you learn it, it's somewhat easier. So,
That's
so
true.
it's almost like I'm describing learning in and of itself. Yeah. So it's I like it and I don't like it. Mainly because now I know that I'm getting older. It just it just things are much more complicated, and it just even though the software itself is trying to make it easy for you. So doing my best.
Mhm.
One day, my technical prowess will be, empty or run out of, and we might have to incorporate new team members. But we'll worry about that as we go along.
Yes. Down the road.
Yeah. Have you already thought about what you imagine this podcast will be? Like, let's say 2 years from now or a year from now?
I really haven't.
Okay.
I guess I'm committed to the free flow uh, reveal itself to us kind of
Okay.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think our goal for right now is 50 subscribers. Now the problem is on Apple Podcasts, I don't know, right? I don't know of a way to tell unique subscriber to that. So
Well, you can
since
see the number of downloads for
mm,
per episode.
yes, um, so I guess we can track that as a metric too.
Hmm.
Hundreds or thousands of downloads. Then we can be, you know, have a I don't know, have a celebration, have another celebration episode.
Well, we're not at 100 yet. I don't even
So
think we're at 50 yet. So
yeah,
got,
quite
got a
quite a
ways to
bit to
go.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We can we can make a coffee mug. I was thinking about
Oh, yeah.
how to do it, and I was like, instead of having sponsors or something like that, we can just, you know, do our own stuff and
Merch.
yeah, merchandise. Correct, correct. So, see, you know the term. You've been listening to other podcasts and they have merch and stuff. But cool. Let's go into unless you have other thoughts. I want to go into what we learn about each other.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you want to add something about the show in general, or are you
Um,
ready?
no, let's
We,
let's move on to that topic. So when I think about what I've learned about you, the the idea of Spock comes to mind as because you brought him
mm,
up quite a bit, or on multiple occasions,
yes.
and you admire his logical, robotic,
Mm-hmm.
non emotional way of dealing with reality,
Yes.
and and so you and I contrast in that way. Like you're more on the tech side, I'm more on the idea side. You're more on the I guess the practical application side, and I'm more
Mm-hmm.
philosophical, and it works well. I think we both sort of corral each other into
Mm,
places where we wouldn't have otherwise gone.
yes.
It's good.
Yes. And for me, I noticed are you complete or are you done or you still got more?
That's pretty much it.
I noticed you do a lot of introspection. So you have a lot of, um, yeah, I would say you have a lot of introspection with regards to any ideas. And then a lot of times it ties, maybe because of the subject matter that we, discussed in the episode, but it ties a lot to childhood as well.
Mhm.
So your childhood, but just in general, all childhoods. And then you like mysteries,
I do.
and you like not knowing, to me at least, or you like
Can you give a specific example of that?
yeah. So when we talk about free will and consciousness, the way you define those things, make it very mysterious, right? And the way I approach those subjects or anything is to demystify and break them down so that
Mm.
I can actually consume and understand. Whereas you take them as a whole and just absorb them as the mystery that they are. Not so much that you don't like understanding, but you accept uh, accept those mysteries as it comes,
Mm.
and like not knowing. Like I think one time I think definitely the episode about free will, you said we'll never answer that question, and you're okay with that, and right, and then I don't know if I'm on the same space, or I'm in the same space as you, with regard to that outlook. And so you have it's hard to describe that whole thing, right? Because it's a mindset that you have, and but yeah. I also notice it takes longer. Our speaking patterns, it takes longer for you to make a point. So for me to work on, I have to control myself and pace. And asking you questions, interview style, allow me to, well, shut up, and let you speak. So,
Mm. Yeah, I guess I'm working it out in my mind as I'm speaking.
mhm,
So,
yeah. And you're very courteous, so you never interrupt me. So it's harder, and because we do it, through virtual phone call, it's hard to read. So, um, yeah, you just have to interrupt me as you go and not worry too much.
are you happy
But
with that state of affairs?
uh, I think I'm okay. I think eventually we might do video if we ever take this further on, mainly because YouTube is a video format, and yes, it requires more work, but in the future, if I either get more resources or learn up my skills better, um, it would just be an easier time syncing up the videos. Then we can incorporate that.
See, this is a
Um,
good example of how you just described what you what you learned about me and what I learned about you.
yeah.
When I asked you, "Are you happy with that state of affairs?" What I was referring to was our distinct personalities and how they meld with each other. But
Okay.
you answered the question with the technical.
So yeah, to your question, yes. Short answer is yes. But yeah, I was thinking about something else when you asked me that. But misunderstood.
No,
Yes. I like it. I like the contrast. I like the contrast. Makes you think differently. And I think it's better also if you're a newer podcast to have a co-host or, a team. I
certainly,
can't
yeah.
I don't remember or know what other people do. For example, let's pick Alex Freeman because his show is very one to one. I watch other clips of him, and it's interview format, right? And since you were a big fan of him, did he start out with the first episode already interviewing somebody? Or was it ever
I
format
didn't
that way?
I didn't start with this first episode. Um,
Mm,
I kind of jumped in midstream, so
mm,
I don't know how he started it.
yeah. But that takes a lot to me, that format takes a lot of work. You have to plan that out and you have to schedule. There's a lot of work behind the scenes for that format to work appropriately, and keep going too. So,
For
no.
Alex Friedman's format.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Same thing with Joe Rogan too. The format of interviewing, you have to do. Oh, I mean, you run Toastmaster, you know how to schedule things. It's just a nightmare. So you
he
have to.
he record Alex Friedman records a ton of podcasts. Um, on a regular basis.
Mm,
He, I know like 2 months after COVID-19,
mm,
one of his intro, he was regularly introducing his podcast by saying this was recorded before the the
mm.
pandemic, blah blah blah. So he must have a ton in the bank already.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to. Yeah. Yeah, and we're not that format, or we're not there yet anyway. And I don't know if we want to be,
No.
but that takes because for him post editing, which is what I talk about, that's why his show is so clean. You need to do a lot more,
Mhm.
and my skill set is not that at that rank yet. So
Well,
until
so I think this is a um, clarifying point, maybe that in addition to the show revealing itself to us, we're also learning how to do a podcast.
hmm
So we kind of came into this as blank slates, but we're it's sort of an exploration of
yeah,
podcasting. So.
yeah. One day I'll show you all the stuff I do, which honestly, it's about maybe 30 minutes of work. It just manipulating the tools I'm not used to takes a long time for me to learn. And to a person who does this all the time, it's easy for them. But we're, you know, I think it was on the episode talking about from you wanted me to have a fresh take. So you didn't want to answer certain things in advance, maybe? I
Mhm.
forgot. Maybe I'm mixing up episode, but you wanted to keep the answer fresh. And in a way, podcasting is a new medium, but I think it's somewhere between playwriting and almost a radio host or radio show.
Mhm.
So the more we learn about this, the more we'll be better at it. But it does take a certain uh, element of that. And so you can't just, I mean, for you, yes, free flow, but I think the better one as we grow this, we'll learn to make it better and more entertaining. I say.
Yeah, I mean the idea behind not discussing it before the podcast is just to make our conversation sound more authentic.
Mm,
I never want it to sound scripted. I
I don't
don't.
think we can.
Yeah, I don't think we can, and we obviously never have done that. But
I
that
think even if you write a script, I won't follow it, so I wouldn't have I wouldn't worry about that.
I'll keep that in mind.
Well, we're not very good. Well, I'm not very good at acting per se or memorizing. I lost my memorization skill
Hmm.
a long time ago, so I can memorize outline much better than
Well, fortunately, you'll neither need to act nor memorize to
perfect.
do this show,
Perfect.
as far as I'm concerned.
Perfect. All right. Any other thoughts?
Okay, so what were we talking about?
What did we learn about each other?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. There's so we think about things differently in our approach, but we're also interested in different topics. But there
Mm,
is some degree of intersection in our interests. But also, so okay, so it's good to talk about things that we're mutually interested in, but it's also good to talk about things that like I'm interested in, but you're not, and vice
mm-hmm.
versa, because that takes us to new areas that we wouldn't have gone to otherwise. And it, I mean, I enjoy listening to our conversations after the fact,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it was a topic I was initially interested in or not.
Yeah. That's the other thing I noticed about you. While so you enjoy re-listening to our episodes,
I do.
whereas I don't. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I think it's my continued addiction of novelty that something new is more. This is why I watch a lot or consume a lot of TV shows. Or maybe I just don't like listening to my own voice. I think that's because the way this medium works, it's kind of like a recording, but because you're talking to somebody, you can rehear how you think. Is that,
Hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yes.
no, I do. I do.
And when I'm listening to it, it just, oh God, why am I? I can hear myself retracing those steps, and it just
Mhm.
not either not attractive or not smart. I don't know. It just feels really weird to me to hear my own voice on that level. Not just the voice, but how I'm processing things.
Yeah,
And
two things. Yeah, that's super interesting to me to revisit the trains of thought that I was having during and you that we were having during the recording of the podcast because I might remember it differently than it actually happened.
mm,
Um, oh crap, I forgot what the second thing was.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. To me, it was yeah. To me, it just it sounds like when people sing and they hear themselves. Sometimes they don't like that, but it's really odd to remember how you think. That's even worse.
Oh, I
Is even
remember.
more yeah, go ahead.
Before I forget, let me spit this out. Sometimes when I'm listening back, I can uh, I can see that by the way I react to something that you said that I didn't fully understand the idea that you were trying to articulate.
Mm.
But on the re-listen, I do understand what you're saying, and so uh, I can observe myself misinterpreting what you said.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
Do you remember a specific example?
I my sense is that it was during our Freakonomics
Mm.
episode, but I can't remember specifically.
Were you suppressing that? Do you remember how do you? Because generally, if I'm confused by something, I just ask you to repeat it until
No, well, I
I do
thought I
understand.
understood it. I
Mm.
could tell that I
Okay.
thought I understood that you meant something when you actually meant something different. But I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, though. I mean,
Gotcha.
we still kept talking,
Yes. Yes.
but it was just
I th-
interesting to observe that.
yeah, I think a lot of that because I'm doing the post edit production, I have to listen,
Mhm.
and mostly I listen for because I do adjust different things to make our voices similar because we're recording on different microphones and all that stuff. So if you ever notice the shows that you watch, they do have very similar microphones
Mhm.
because of that reason,
Yeah.
to make sure equipment and all that stuff. So by the time I'm all done, I'm just already exhausted with listening to my own voice.
Uh-huh.
And so I would skip things so I'm listening more for quality. And by the time it's actually shared and I send it to you, I'm done with that episode. I don't listen to the whole thing, of course, but maybe like for this episode, re-listening to the first episode was very refreshing. I actually liked that, even though I didn't listen to it all. Um, but yeah, that's what else I learned. Let's uh let's move on to what's your favorite episode, or you have multiple favorite episode you wanna bring up.
I like them all in their own unique way.
No bias.
I mean, I enjoy re-listening to them.
Okay.
So that must demonstrate something, right? I really like our hero's journey
Mm,
episode. I thought
yeah.
we did a good job of articulating the concept, but also
Yes.
we had a lot of interesting specific examples. And I think the process of actually going through that brought me to a new level of understanding of the hero's journey.
Wow.
Because when you teach something to somebody, you actually
Learn.
reinforce your own learning. So
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my I like that episode pretty good. I like the self-help episode a lot too.
yeah, that
I
was
think
good.
I think I like the self-help and the free will episode more because we try to answer the tougher questions in free will than I've in the other episode. Because the other episodes I feel like we do essentially homework. So if I was a college student, I can like skip some of the stuff and just do this, listen to this episode, and write stuff down. Like, oh yeah, 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 sure. Um, But whereas free will, uh, it sounds like it was a class in and of itself, and so we did exploration into try to answer really difficult questions that if I had come across Harris' book myself and read it, it would just be something I read real quick and then you know think about it while I drink a coffee or something, and then never visit those thoughts again. So it's nice to have somebody else and bounce ideas back and forth. So that I enjoy that episode the most. Working on it and re-listening to it as well.
Free will
Uh,
or self help?
Free will,
Free will.
episode
Okay.
7. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. Oh, I also love our Toastmasters episode
Yes.
because
Yes.
we talked about our personal experience and what
Yes.
what we got out of Toastmasters. I recently posted that YouTube link. I'm part of a Facebook group that's
Mhm.
it's got like 34,000 uh, members.
Mhm.
It's a Toastmasters. I guess it's a nationwide Toastmasters group. So I posted that Toastmasters episode on there, and I think
Mm.
maybe one person listened to
I was gonna say like what's the feedback you got, but
it.
um by far production value wise, I thought that episode was really good compared to some of the other stuff we have, mainly because we were so on tune and actually going through the motion of uh focusing the discussion on each component and then stopping it there and going to the next topic. I don't know. I just remember it being very clean. Uh, I might have to re-listen to it to see how it compares to the other episode. Whereas other ones try to have bleeding conversations. That one's really good in regard to following an outline. But yeah, I like
and
that one too.
and it was surprising too because if I was to think up an episode of about Toastmasters before actually doing it, I would assume that it would focus on the public speaking aspect of it, but we actually spent a huge amount of time talking about the leadership aspects.
Yes.
So it was really it opened up something, it was
Yeah,
neat.
mainly that only worked because we both went through that phase, right? I don't think if it was done by someone or if either one of us didn't have that experience, that episode would not have turned out that way or wouldn't have worked that way.
Mhm.
Mainly because we lacked the experience to kind of share the frustration of running, uh, you know, non work environment that's people are non-paid. It's really strange.
Mhm. Yeah, you have to cajole. There's a lot of cajoling going on.
Awesome. Uh,
I
least
also
favorite? All right,
oh
no, go ahead.
are we gonna do least favorite? Well,
No,
I
not until you
before
have finished.
before we do that, because I definitely want to do that.
Hmm.
I I liked our Star Wars episode too
Yeah.
because, and you know why? Because I had a lot of ideas in my mind swimming
Mm,
um, about the whole Star Wars universe and how and what it developed into, but I had
mm,
not fully crystallized or organized those thoughts into a coherent theme. And so
mm.
doing that podcast it was a process of making all those thoughts coherent and organized. So that
Yeah.
was really good. I liked that.
Yeah. Almost like writing an essay on Star Wars for you, so you
Yeah.
can actually let it out. By the way, I don't know if you know, but the way you tag things is how sometimes get found.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna be surprised, like months from now, Star Wars is gonna be rank higher than any other episode. Mainly because, well, maybe same here as episode, but maybe because of the way you tag Star Wars. So very well, not likely, but it might be found more often than other episodes. So just so you know, for
Yeah.
future.
It's currently our second most viewed episode, but that might just be because it's the second oldest.
Yes, that's the case too. Uh, and yeah, No, I like that one a lot. I often thought about this offline. I never share it with you, but it relates to other things we talk about in regards to just our general atmosphere of the show, because it covers there's an idea, and you might know about it, how George Lucas get the idea of the Jedi Knights and the Force. Did you ever hear those stories?
No.
Lucas is enthralled with Japanese samurai culture,
Hmm.
so he kind of adapted. So that's why they wear robes. They have
Hmm.
lightsabers because he likes the katanas. And in regards to the Force, is the Japanese call it ki, but the Chinese call it chi as well. So it's martial
Okay.
art related.
And
Have you?
chi is like the energetic field in your body. Is that
Correct. It's
yeah?
how people break bricks with bare hands and do other crazy stuff.
Mhm.
But
What
that
was the word you just used? Katana. What is?
katana is the swords
Oh,
that
okay.
the Japanese samurais use.
Okay.
Um, the epic famous ones that samurais use to slice stuff.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I don't know if he read something or saw a movie, because there are several ones that influence very influential, and I think he took some of that, right. He didn't take all of it. He just took some of that and molded it into what Star Wars was. That's why they're kind of like monk-ish, and they're
Hmm.
kind of non-political and just kind of independent body of organizations, and yeah, yeah, that's how I make it. But I don't know. I thought that was well known with Star Wars world. So, yep.
It
All
sounds
right.
familiar. I may have heard that at one point.
Let's go to your. I think I know which one it is too.
Yes.
Your least favorite episode.
Oh, um, I mean, I guess it would have to be the Crumb episode, right?
Yes. Yes. Um, why was it your least favorite?
Well, I mean, the obvious reason is that we were supposed to watch the same movie, and you ended up
Mm,
finding some different movie and watching it and
yeah.
thinking it was the same movie. So
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a disconnect, but it actually worked out. It was I've re-listened to that episode, of course, and I of course enjoyed the re-listen. So
Mm,
I
mm,
thought we made lemonade out of lemons.
yes. Yeah, I learned a big thing for that from that episode. I learned to pre-plan, right? I think if we ever gonna do something, make sure that is actually available um, to be able to consume,
Mhm.
so that we can actually plan on that, especially movies or stuff like that. So yeah, I learned a lot, but in general, we can just keep moving forward. I think my least favorite is actually episode one, and maybe maybe this one too, but maybe no, this one is actually more focused. But
Your least favorite episode might be the one we're doing right now.
no.
Is that what you just said?
Anytime we go self-reflect, like episode one,
Mhm.
it's gonna be not as fun for me. When we talk about a certain topic, I like that more.
But you came
Um,
up with the whole idea of a meta podcast,
yes, I did. I did.
and
So
but
it's very meta.
you're starting to learn that you don't actually like that initial idea.
Well, the way you approach a topic and how you think about it is what I like. And if there's a way to define that word or capture that, maybe that might be it. But I like the show in general. Episode one is just very figuring ourselves out, and we need to. It's healthy to do this, but uh, you know, it's very boring for listener to listen to our thoughts all the way through with no reference to any other thing out there, like
Hmm.
any other books or any other show, unless they're big fans of how we think. Then yeah, they would enjoy this episode too. But
I think I like episode one from a historical perspective.
yes,
You know,
yes,
it's what is it? it's documentary evidence of this show. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you ready to tackle the big question?
Well, hold on. The only episode we didn't discuss during this well, actually, there's two. We didn't discuss the Freakonomics episode, and we didn't discuss the podcasts episode.
Yes. Podcast
Episode.
episodes, I would say is not that good to me,
Hmm.
but it was basically making a list. It was basically one of these YouTube videos that I watch and consume a lot. But because of the amount of tags that's in there, it
Yeah.
actually over time that episode might actually be our bread and butter winner as well because of the way you tag everything up. Now, typically there's an ideal number of tags, but it depends on how YouTube recode itself. We brought up a lot of different good good books and different things in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
But to me it was basically us doing a list. That said, I still
It's a reference episode.
yeah yeah not as interesting as the other ones in my opinion, but
It was a
I
good
haven't
idea,
finished.
though. It was a good idea. It was our first
Yes.
it was our first foray into an actual meta podcast. Wasn't it? It was
Yes.
self-reflexive and
Yeah. I don't think, well, unless you can find somebody out there, you know,
well, I
doing.
also think it's interesting in that you didn't. Well, you mentioned Freakonomics in that, but I think it's a good source of information as to what each of us finds interesting and how we think.
Yes. Yeah.
If somebody along the way, wants to research that.
Yeah. Look at episode 5 to
Scott
see.
Markowitz
Yes.
or my sister.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't. You. I don't think if you draw a Venn diagram, right? I don't think I would ever bleed into history the way you like history. Now that said, in the future I might change, right? But for the next week or so, pretty sure I'm still not gonna find the topics you find interesting. Now that said, over the last few weeks I started jumping around Alex Freeman stuff, trying to find an episode I can listen to for longer than 10 minutes. So maybe you do have some influence there.
There's one episode where he interviews his father, which I found to be very interesting. His father grew up in the Soviet Union,
Mm.
and he's also some sort of scientist too. I think he deals with like quantum mechanics.
Hmm.
But the conversation they had together was really interesting because not only did they discuss technical scientific stuff, but there was also they related to each other on the father son level, so that it
Hmm.
had a lot of dimensions to it.
Wow. Yep.
Okay, I can tell you're hooked.
No. No. I can't imagine the tone of his father's voice, but if they're gonna talk about something, good lord, I
he
don't
has
know if
a
I can hold on to that.
he has a very Russian accent. So a companion episode, I think, to the podcast episode was the Freakonomics episode, because that was basically the one podcast that you had on your list. I had
Mhm.
like 20 and you had Freakonomics. And
Yeah.
this I think this is an area that we should explore more going forward. Is it seems like a lot of the topics are topics that I'm interested in initially.
Mhm.
And Freakonomics, that one episode was specifically a topic that was in your realm of interest.
Yep.
And so I'm certainly open to exploring that more in the future. Definitely.
Yeah. 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 I liked it. So it's like it's hard to find. For me, it's hard to find things that interest me in a longer term. And like I found Freakonomics to be one of those rare things that hold my attention and hold my interest for, a long term. So that's why I was a big fan of it. Um,
The
I don't
fact
know.
the fact that it holds your attention is interesting to me.
Yes, yes, to me too. Because I was like, why is this thing capable of this versus other things? So never dive deeper into it, but very curious as to, you know, I think in my regards to how I study in college and all that stuff too is like very unique. As long as certain way to ask questions or a certain way to do interesting work, be very much interested in that. So, yep. All right, we ready? You ready
Yes,
to answer the big question?
I am. Well,
Big
I'm
question.
not. I don't have an answer, but I'm ready to approach the
Well,
question.
yes. Big question for the episode is, what is this show about? Now that we're on our 10th episode, have we figured out, what our show is about? What do you think our show is about?
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, from a topic perspective, it's very open ended. I think it's it's about the intersection of our personalities. Now, the broader question
Yeah,
is, why would anyone else other than you and I be interested in listening to that? And I don't have an answer to that.
yeah, yeah. Same. I think this show is about everything. However, it does have a hemisphere of interest. And I sent episode 7 to a friend. They said it's, actually very interesting. They found it, they found it surprisingly interesting. And it was, about free will and the book. And he's background philosophy, so maybe it's bias that he's interested in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say uh, yeah, see, I made that sound. In a tangent hemisphere, if you draw a certain circle, our realm of interest go from philosophy to science, and it does covers a lot, but it typically have an arrow of focus around those things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it does. The show is about, well, silly human beings and their introspections of science, philosophy, possibly even religion later on. But I would like to attack those in regards to focused topics like a book or someone's essay, and that will allow us to discuss those, discuss their thoughts and our thoughts into those things without being controversial, I suppose. But yeah, we don't talk about fashion.
That's true.
Talking about pop music. What else don't we talk about? I'm pretty sure we'll never talk about like, our favorite rap album, sports. I I
Cuisine we don't discuss.
yeah. Yeah.
Although you and I, maybe we should do an episode on pho.
Yeah. Have you ever had consume it yet?
Pho, of course. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you wait when I were you there? I don't remember. I remember taking the team out to have pho, but of course some people didn't have it.
It's pronounced
Um,
pho, right?
yes, yes.
It's hard.
So
It's hard for me to pronounce it that way.
yeah, that's why there's a lot of play on names with those restaurants. But anyway, when I switched my leadership team from, I think it was my current leadership, to the next one, I took the Apex Toastmaster leadership team out. Were you there or
No,
no?
I was not.
Okay. Now, did you have back in, I forgot what state?
Connecticut.
Boston, Connecticut. Yes.
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a huge pho restaurant um, in West Hartford, which is near where I lived, and yeah, so that I think that was the first time I ever had it. It was
Yeah.
like it was a big place and lots of tables, and it was frequented by, I guess, ethnic Vietnamese people.
Mm,
Myself and my family were um, definitely a minority, but so that's good though because
yeah.
it speaks to its authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Uh, I think we might discuss cuisine in regards to our interest of it, but not in our capability of making it. We're not, we're not chef. Are you a chef? Are you like super good at making things?
There's a couple of things that I enjoy making, but it's like chili and chicken and dumplings and stuff like that. You know, I can grill. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's our. We won't cross into that kind of lifestyle episode. Maybe on rare occasion we might be.
Yeah, down the
Um,
road. We've got a
yeah.
lot of ground to cover before we resort
Good.
to that topic.
Good. Well, yeah. I think if there's any kind of description, maybe Scott can write up, or other fans, then feel free to comment on the YouTube video of this episode. But yeah, that's what generally our show covers and don't cover. And I think we definitely demonstrated over the last 10 episodes, and we'll see where it goes in the next 10. But I think that's kind of answered the question.
Yeah, it's not a good
Unless,
answer. I don't think I think the answer is we don't know the answer.
yeah, and we're not gonna pitch and hole ourselves either.
No, of
So,
course not.
but the format is a conversation, and I don't know if there's anyone else having the same. See, some of the other podcasts I visit or listen to, it's usually around. Um, I don't want to say hearsay, but like pop culture. But see, like my friend recommended this comedian, and when I listen to his podcast, it's about him and let's say two or three other of their crews, I guess, like his coworkers,
Hmm.
and they just talk about things in the news, and it's just uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
God, I sound so pompous when I talk about this stuff, but it's just so, um,
Well, you're the
you know,
captain. You're the captain of Tang. You know, it's up to you to
well,
decide what you're interested in.
right, and that's fair to me, but when yeah, I don't want to make this sound like this podcast is better than anybody else, but it's different in regards to that because I don't want to do that because to me, if I listen to something, it's either entertaining or if you eat something, it's nutrition, right? And for lack of a better term, this is nutrition for your brain. And if you just listen to all this other stuff out there, uh, it's just like watching, I don't know, soap operas almost. It's just noise. So
Well, and
that's
also if the show is topical, it follows current events. It's going to get dated very quickly,
mm, mm, yes.
and I want people
Yeah.
to come back to our episodes over and over again.
Like you do.
Yeah, like me. I'm probably our best listener.
Yes, yes.
Maybe
That's
this
good
show.
though.
Maybe I'm the audience for this show.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
Is
As
it?
long as we're more of a signal than the noise, then I'm happy. Now it doesn't have to be super clean all the time, but as long as we try to be, and less, less village rumor-ish. I've
Hmm.
been watching a bunch of TV shows that have medieval stuff in there and village life with people just rumors and it's just soap operas after one after another, and I'm just like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah. So that's who we are. If we answer that question,
Yeah.
then we're
Deal with
good.
it.
Gotcha. All right. So rounding up, this is an exciting part. Future topics, or do you want to share with our fan base what we're gonna cover? Little preview.
Well, uh,
Next.
yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about this, but a little bit I have. We had discussed viewing American movie. I don't know if you're still interested in that. And we had discussing the topic of truth.
Mm,
And
yeah.
yeah, I can sense the excitement oozing from you.
No, we did. We were discussing offline the possibilities of doing a read-along series.
Oh yeah,
So
I forgot about that.
we're definitely settled for episode 11 and 12, or just 11 so far. But I think that's I don't know. It's exciting to me to do it, I'm not sure if it's exciting to, a few other listeners, but maybe
Mhm.
it's different, variety, fun thing to do. And if it doesn't drag on like for so long, then it could be very exciting to just do it in a short term.
Can you
Um,
explain what you mean by read along?
so read along would be like, like your class, for example, in high school where you read, a novel, page one to something, and then you just the entire semester reading that book, right? Because you just never be able to finish it. That would be the read along. So,
Hmm.
episode, whatever, will cover this page to this page, and then you finish the book and you talk about what you read. So that's a read along series. So it could take multiple episodes, but if it's too long, like let's say, the next 20 episodes over some book, it'll be terrible. I wouldn't I
I
wouldn't want to listen to
I'd
that.
I'd
I would
stop
skip
listening
all
to
those.
us.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm impressed by you listening to those history podcasts because I'm just it's like just give me the whole thing in a paragraph. Don't do every episode. I don't know how you. So yeah, it's some ideas that we're experimenting with or discussing about. But
Did did we come up with a topic for episode 11 already?
we have, and we'll talk about it offline, so kind of be a surprise to our audience.
Okay.
But we did plan something for episode 11, possibly 12, if the material covers that much. I think it might.
We can
So
stretch it, I'm sure.
so yeah, along with some of the topics you brought up, we can do read along series. And the read alongs mostly will be either sci-fi or some other stuff that's interesting to us both, because then we can share share our thoughts about it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, look forward to that and a new a new outro. What else have our audience to look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a mystery.
It's a
Mysteries are
mystery.
exciting. So
Okay.
they can look forward to the continual unfolding of whatever this
Yeah.
is into the
Yeah.
magnificent flower.
All right. Think that's it. I think
Is that
that's
it?
all we is. Are you happy? Yeah, I think that's pretty good recap.
Yeah.
A recap episode. Yeah.
So it's not our longest episode, but it's kind of right smack in the middle.
Yeah. It's good enough time. Thank you. Yeah, thank you to our little audience and
Mhm.
continue supporting us. I would say stay tuned for exciting new stuff that we're exploring. And then if they have any ideas and suggestions to share with us as well. So,
Yes.
all
All right. Good show, Tang. Thank you.
right, good show. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey, this is Tang here with the Epic Meta podcast team. Thank you so much for listening. Did you listen to the whole episode? Did you enjoy it? Were there things that we missed? Were there topics you would like for us to dive deeper into? And of course, what other topics should we discuss in the future? If you have any of these thoughts or comments, please share with us what you think and how you feel regarding the current episode, and of course, other ideas that you might have for future episode below. As always, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, be good and be well.